Are you worried that crime seems to be through the roof and you're not sure what to do about it? Concerned that violent crimes are not being held accountable? I'm Grace Gordon, a criminologist at AUT. I'm an expert about what causes crime, and I'm here today to answer some of your questions. This is Crime Matters. So let's get into it. I've seen a lot of media coverage about a crime wave happening. Is crime actually increasing? Crime rates often fluctuate from month to month, but the overall long-term trend has been stable for most categories of crime or decreasing. Crime rates are not a full representation of how much crime is happening, as only a quarter of crimes are reported to the police each year. Therefore, fluctuations in crime statistics are more a reflection of the public's reporting practices or the police's recording practices of crime. The media and politicians use these artificial fluctuations in the crime rate as an opportunity to criticise policies and practices if crime rate goes up, or to praise policies and practices if crime rates go down. I'm also hearing that we need to build more prisons. Do we actually have a lot of people in prison? Well, we have a lot more than we used to. Policy changes in the 1990s and the 2000s has led to more people in prison for longer sentences. As a result, in 2018, we had over 10,000 people in our prisons. Our prison population during COVID reduced significantly, but now is on the rise and we're about to hit that 10,000 mark again. So about 1 in every 550 New Zealanders is in prison. This is similar to Australia, but in other countries, like Canada for instance, who have fewer people in prison, there are also other countries like the United States that have more than 3 or 4 times the amount of people that we have in prison. Our current government is introducing more tough on crime policies and increasing our prison bed capacity, which means we're likely to see an increase in people in our prison in the coming years. So who are these people in our prisons? Here's some stats. 93% of people in prison are male. A third of them are between the ages of 30 and 39. 53% are Māori, and that is more for women. 43% are in custody awaiting trial, and over half of them are categorised as minimum or low security classification. People in our prisons are more likely than the general population to be a victim of violence, have a lifetime diagnosable mental health disorder or substance disorder, and to have lower levels of educational achievement. Some groups, such as Māori, are affected more. The reasons for this are the ongoing impacts of colonisation, racism at all stages of our justice system, intergenerational trauma, and our state care to prison pipeline. So how much does this cost us? Well, it's expensive. It costs over $150,000 to just put one person in prison per year. This current government has announced it will be spending $1.9 billion of taxpayer money towards prison. 4% of this will be on rehabilitation programs, but the large chunk on it is on building more prison beds. There are other costs of imprisonment too. People that are in prison are removed from their communities, and we expect them to be reintegrated back into a society that excluded them in the first place. There are also ripple effects. The partners and children of people in prison are also impacted. They've either lost an income or are suffering the loss of their loved one being separated from them. And when people are released from prison, they are more likely to reoffend because prison is not an environment that's conducive to rehabilitation. Many people think that being tough on crime is the answer. Doesn't it make people think twice before committing crime? No, evidence tells us that tough on crime policies do not work. Many people are struggling with mental health issues, engaging in survival crime, or under the influence of drugs, and therefore they're not thinking rationally before they commit crime. Also, the fact that we have such high rates of people being sentenced and imprisoned again and again demonstrates that being tough on crime does not work. So, what are the consequences of being tough on crime? Well, it funnels our most marginalised, vulnerable and oppressed communities into our criminal punishment system. And here I'm intentionally calling it a criminal punishment system because it does not achieve justice for anyone. Instead, our criminal justice system, by design, excludes, isolates, and traps people into this system, and it creates cycles of harm, which creates more and more victims. Why are tough on crime policies so popular? They appeal to the emotional desire for vengeance, punishment, and retribution. There's anger, pain, and fear that drives the public to want to push for more tough on crime policies. We all see stories of the news and in social media about all this violent crime that's occurring, and it sometimes seems like it's all around us. So politicians use crime and law and order as a political football, where parties seeming soft on crime are accused of not taking crime seriously. Is there a better way? I advocate for a care-based approach where we put relationships and humanities at the forefront. This means addressing the drivers of crime by reducing inequalities in healthcare, housing, education, and ensuring everyone has a livable wage. It also means meaningfully addressing intergenerational trauma and responding to harm in a trauma-informed way. When people feel like they are included and belong in society, they're less likely to turn to a life of crime. Can we afford a care-based approach? We spend about $2 billion on prison each year. It's easier, more effective, and cheaper in the long run if we're spending money preventing people from offending rather than trying to rehabilitate them at a later stage. But what about the victim's point of view? Don't they want offenders punished? Don't they deserve justice? Absolutely. It's important that victims do have access to justice. The criminal punishment system that we currently have does not allow victims to have a voice, and if they do, it can often be a re-traumatizing experience. For many victims, no amount of punishment can take away the pain or the harm that they've experienced. But aren't some people just bad and need to be punished? For people to engage in abhorrent behaviour, there are underlying conditions and experiences that contribute to their harmful actions. In other words, hurt people hurt people. Simply punishing criminals does not provide the opportunity for people to take accountability and responsibility. Punishment is something that is done to someone, where prison takes a person away from the harm that they've caused. Accountability, on the other hand, is done with someone, and that is more likely to lead to a change in behaviour. We need a better way of holding people accountable and moving away from a system that simply punishes people. If people who commit crime aren't in prison, doesn't that put me at risk? There is currently a small number of criminals who do need to be securely managed to ensure safety. However, this could be done in a way that's more humane, rehabilitative, and restorative. Repeat violent offenders often worry people, and the most important thing is making sure that crime doesn't happen again. Evidence tells us that most people who go to prison for low-level offending often escalate their offending once they've been released. This is because prison is not conducive to rehabilitation, which means people are released into the same conditions that led them to engage in crime in the first place. Former prisoners entering back into society also face stigma when they're trying to access housing and employment, making it more likely that they're going to reoffend again. What about people who say prison helped them? Some people acknowledge that prison was the first time they were away from the drugs, a harmful environment, or the things that fostered their engagement in crime. However, that is an indictment on us as a society that we have to wait until people have committed a crime before they are given the help that they need. I hope you found these questions and answers about crime matters helpful. Thanks for watching.